Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is me, OC Steve, and over there, because this is inverted, it's a camera, is DJ Ruben representing NorCal, wearing a lovely New Japan t-shirt that you too, if you want to support New Japan Pro Wrestling, can buy on the Global Tokon shop. There are many other people that make New Japan products, but let me remind you that this is actually done by New Japan proper. It goes to the wrestlers. It goes to the product that we love so much from the land of the rising sun. And you don't have to wait 6 weeks to get your shirt because a lot of the times they have their stuff in stock and they got their stuff together. So, Ruben, how the hell are you?
I'm doing well, Steve.
That was a little taste, kids. We're changing it up. It's a new year, so we're going to have a new format. We're adding a new piece to the show where Ruben's going to throw a topic at me, and I got 2 minutes to have a little rage in the cage, vent myself a little bit, lament a little bit, because as nerds, you can only take so much when you see nonsense that you got to call crap shit and move along with it. So I don't know the subject. Ruben's picking them off the cuff. This is the first time I'm going to hear it. I got 2 minutes, like Bonesaw McGraw and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, to unleash the beast on the back of this conversation's forehead. So hopefully Ruben's picking some good ones. More importantly, we want you in the comments below to mention stuff and send them to Ruben on his socials for me to go off on as a little nerd rage, or Oso Furioso if you call it. So that's the new bit that we will be adding to the show. So we'll probably put a disclaimer in the future moving forward. Don't bring your kids. There might be some colorful language. So other than that, we are going to be covering some stuff here on Our Coast Live. We are going to be attending, at least I will be attending WrestleCon before WrestleMania. Ruben will be going to his very first comic book convention, which is Comic-Con's little cousin known as WonderCon here at the Anaheim Convention Center. Ruben's already a big Disney sweaty himself, so he gets to be right next to the park. You get some comic books and some swag over there. It's like peanut butter and jelly, isn't it, Ruben?
Oh yes, it's the best. Like the convention center is like right down the street from the park. So,
and more importantly, we'll be doing this live. So
yes,
no pressure on Ruben. He's got to figure out how we're going to do that. So bear with us, kids. It's going to be a fun experiment. We're building the plane as we're flying it. That's half the fun of doing this show. So there's that. And we will be going to WonderCon. I will be going to Comic-Con, trying to do the exact same thing as a one-man band. And then at the end of the year, we have DesignerCon.
Yes.
So we get to check that out. You get to see pretty much the Consumer Electronics Expo of geek culture is the best way to describe it. Some of the most cutting-edge stuff before it even hits the market that can be or could be crowdfunded. The big businesses are kind of looking at those guys to pick them up. So it's a very fun, unique experience. It's almost like going to an art expo because there's DJs and other kinds of random crap. It's just this perfect fusion that works together. That's DesignerCon. So I highly suggest you check it out. Those are some of the many events that are going on here on the West Coast. So stay tuned for that. But let's get into some geek news before we hit home at the end with this lovely new segment of my rants and raves and whatever reviews. So I think the biggest trailer that dropped as we took a little bit break for a week was the second Ant-Man trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp, with one of the worst potential names known to man, Quantumania. Why in the wide world of sports they decide to name this the most wackiest thing that they could have done? They couldn't have called it like Inner Space or Into. There it is. There's that retarded logo. I don't get what they were doing with this, Ruben. You know, I get that obviously the quantum realm played a big part in the Infinity War. You know, the whole time trip, the time dilation. Somehow Kang stuck there, and the only way to get him out is Scott Lang.
I think they had to go with Quantumania because Into the Unknown was taken by Frozen. So,
well, there is that. And good God, that song from Fall Out Boy at the end is like nails on a chalkboard. But yeah, you know, it's like I get that Kang is all powerful and all knowing, and it's really going to take a suspension of disbelief to try to understand why he's stuck in the quantum realm of all places. I mean, visually, they got a lot of stuff home. Like his costume is almost near pitch perfect, you know, but there is criticism going along with it. So I'm going to present some images aside from this right now that a lot of geeks are giving it a hard time about. So the first one that comes to mind is, aside from Kang, the second villain in this movie is MODOK. Now, everybody, look, I'm a Marvel fan, but I don't know what the entire goddamn acronym for MODOK is. Mental oversight, decimation. Who the hell cares? It's MODOK. It's a giant head, essentially is what it is. And so this is the comic book rendition of MODOK that I will put up, that everybody is like looking at. So essentially it's just a dude with a giant ass head.
With small arms and feet.
With small arms and feet. You are correct. So this is one that was done by Invincible artist right here that had some runs on the Incredible Hulk. You can see him. He has a lovely little buzz cut haircut. He has a little gem, and it looks like he's taking a shit in a floating throne. There's not too much to MODOK. So sorry, MODOK fans. I am not a MODOK sweaty. I've never understood the logic of a giant floating redneck trash can with a jetpack where his anus should be.
Yes.
Essentially, I've never seen him as a viable threat. I get that there's like the leader, but at least like the leader, had some gamma ray exposure. So he kind of has some quasi enhanced superhuman abilities aside from the giant brain that makes him look like Kai Mundi from Star Wars. So this guy you could just punt into orbit. Not too big of a threat.
Which they've done a few times in some of the 90s TV shows and comic books. They just kick them.
Oh yeah, the animated Incredible Hulk series in the 90s. This guy was never a serious threat. This guy was like a joke and a half. So, there's MODOK there. Let's see what MODOK looks like on the big screen. This is a snippet from the trailer. There he is. Essentially looking exactly the same.
Oh, he has a face mask. That might be bannable.
Yeah, he has a face mask. So, he goes into battle mode, and then all this shit extends from the lower nether regions of his floating porta potty.
So, yeah, I saw that people were upset because he looks like that. I'm like, this is like one image.
I mean, there's really no good way that you could have done MODOK. MODOK's already a weird enough character that it's like, dude, the fact that you're a MODOK fan says more about you than the fact that you're mad that MODOK is in the movie and it's not the MODOK that you wanted. So back up the MODOK a little bit.
Hashtag not my MODOK.
Not my MODOK. People are losing their lunch about James Gunn and MODOK. You guys need to get outside for a minute, man. The fact that he is in a comic and he's in a movie and he visually is like about 75% there. Just enjoy the ride, man. Sometimes happy that just be happy the fact that your character got in the film in the first place. Mm-hmm. So, let's back up the hate train a little bit. But I thought what was funny is the comparisons that are being made overall to the visual space, because since this is in the quantum realm, they're really using a lot of green screen, more so than any other Marvel films. Like practically at the beginning of that trailer, you see them in the regular world, and then the minute they get sucked into the quantum realm, it is green screen and Mandalorian technology left and right. And the one biggest criticism, Ruben, that people are making is this looks very reminiscent to a Robert Rodriguez film from yesteryear. And I'm not talking about Machete. I am talking about Spy Kids 3.
Hey.
We got George Lopez here looking kind of like a faux MODOK. Look at the suit colors. Yeah, okay, so they changed the genders up a little bit, and Ant-Man's a little more red than pink.
Oh, I hope it is shot by shot Spy Kids.
So Peyton, Mr. Reed did not really do his homework too much. He carbon copied Robin Rodriguez and made it a little bit more adult. Look, there's the three of them because there's Cassie Lang, Stature, which, the way how the tone of the trailer goes, spoilers, kids, I don't even know it's spoilers. It's more speculation that this movie is probably going to see the fatality of Scott Lang and move forward with Cassie as the new pseudo Ant-Woman. At least in my mind,
someone big is gonna die in this movie.
Well, that whole tagline, "I don't have to win, we just both have to lose."
Right.
So there's been a lot of building in all the Disney Plus programming where they're trying to transition to other generational heroes. I mean, we just had Black Panther, where now Shuri's the new Black Panther. It introduced Ironheart, which is now the de facto Iron Man replacement. You have Kate Bishop, who's now the Hawkeye replacement, because who knows if even Jeremy Renner is going to come back after that whole snowplow incident. So let's be honest about that. You know, he should be happy that he's alive in that regard. But they've been doing a lot of changing of the guard. I mean, they tried with Jane Foster, but obviously they got rid of her because Hemsworth wants to stick around. But they've set up Hemsworth's daughter as Love. That could potentially be a Thor replacement. We have Kamala Khan as another Miss Marvel replacement. Even in WandaVision, we had Monica Rambeau's daughter become practically Photon. So we'll see what happens with the Marvels. I mean, we've also had Falcon now become Captain America.
Right, the transitioning over. Then Wanda's twins.
Yep. You have Wiccan as one of those. So, you know, there's a lot of going on. And even Doctor Strange with America Chavez was another replacement for the Cosmic Realm. So, I mean, and She-Hulk, let's be honest. I mean, that show kind of went the way it went, and they decided to hit the sabotage button on itself and implode based on its own dumbness near the end, making fun of the hand that feeds you, but she's still a character that can be around. So I don't know. I think that this is a good way that if they do it right, it's a way to send off, you know, Scott Lang. Personally, with the iterations of Ant-Man and especially reading the Ant-Man comics, I've always been a fan of the Eric O'Grady, the Irredeemable Ant-Man that was written by Robert Kirkman, where he's a SHIELD agent that gets an Ant-Man suit, and he's just has the biggest case of, you know what, fuck this in general, and decides to put on an Ant-Man suit and be his own hero for hire, stopping purse snatchers, asking for money, being a resource for the Avengers, like as the fill-in Ant-Man, but it comes at a cost. He was a great degenerate dirtbag, and I was hoping that maybe the next time around, if we do get like an Ant-Man, maybe they lean a little left and have a little fun with a darker, more opportunistic Ant-Man.
I like it. I think they do need to get away from some of these stereotypical tropes, because, like, you know, you have to start showing the other iterations of some of these characters too. And DC has a good does a better job with this than Marvel, having heroes with issues, like different personal vendettas and different their own problems that they're facing. And I think for the MCU especially, it's been pretty much cut and dry. Like,
well, it's just always been hero origin stories. We never really deal with their problems. I mean, there was an opportunity in Iron Man 2, instead of having that viral infection, they could have dealt with alcoholism, or even in Iron Man 3, they kind of tried to do with PTSD and shell shock, if you will, from the events of the Avengers. But they, you know, it was a topic, but it wasn't really a driving force for Tony in that movie. And I agree with what you're saying, is that the Marvel universe, the reason why a lot of people predominantly read the Marvel universe, these are fractured characters that have problems, that live in a normal world and are trying to balance either being a hero and their regular life and finances or other personal responsibilities. They're kind of more grounded than the DC comics, but it's funny how the films have flipped inversely, and now the DC characters are more your fractured characters. Like, at least say what you want about the Justice League, but Batman was, after the death of Superman, felt a burden to carry on and protect the planet. And that carried through as a narrative in the Snyderverse, where we don't really see narratives for other characters moving forward.
Right.
The only one that really did was Spider-Man, when he felt that, you know, he had some feeling still of lament after Iron Man died at the end of Endgame.
Right.
And that's
trying to fill those shoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Barely scratched the surface.
Yeah. Like, no, I mean, if that was a guy who was a father figure to you, because we never saw Uncle Ben in this version of Spider-Man, you think that would carry through. Mm-hmm. And so actually, the aside from all that, the most interesting kind of mainstream news about geeks that I wanted to cover was this recent and sworn into office Southern California politician Robert Garcia gets sworn into office as a member of the House of Representatives. And I thought this was unique. So when you get sworn in, you can ask the Library of Congress for a document. A lot of people sometimes choose a Bible. Maybe it was owned by Abraham Lincoln, you know, a religious text, a piece of poetry. There's really no credo to what you can do when you get sworn in. It's really, aside from having, maybe a piece of the Constitution or a legal document, there's no like official precedent that needs to be set forward. So Robert Garcia was an immigrant from Peru, came to this country at the age of 5 and learned how to read and write English predominantly from comic books. More importantly, Superman. That's where he got a lot of his ability to understand the English language. But through reading those books, he understands some core concepts: truth, justice, the American way of life, that if you apply yourself and you care for others along the way, that the opportunities are endless. And he took advantage of those credos. He took that into his own campaign using a lot of Superman lettering and documents. So he really believes in that. He also believed in the small town values that were there and how the Kents raised Superman as their own, as Kal-El. So when he got sworn into office last week, there were 3 documents, aside from a copy of the Constitution, that he wanted there when he got legally sworn in. He had 3 items: a photo of his parents that he lost to COVID, his certificate when he was as a naturalized United States citizen, and an original copy of Superman #1 from the Library of Congress. I get it. There's some people who are like, oh, Action Comics, blah, blah, blah. Still a very important issue, because this was outside of Action Comics. This was a big poignant issue. That issue alone is worth $5 million. And if you take anything away from this, is the fact that the Library of Congress has a comic book as one of the very first issues of Superman that they deem important enough to keep in their volumes as American history. Ruben, what do you think about that, man?
I think it's pretty awesome. Yeah, oftentimes, especially back when Superman 1 came out, being into geek culture was taboo. Like, it wasn't as popular as it is now, right? It's so mainstream now. It's okay to fly that geek flag, but back then, you're kind of hiding that you read comic books, right? And for that, for him, to have his Superman comics as his source of learning English, that speaks volumes on the strength of geek culture.
And I think a lot of the times when we're having trouble with the educational system, that this is a great story saying that comic books are an easy medium for people to learn, to understand core concepts and moral values. And so I think that's great. I think that's important. Sometimes it doesn't need to be the Iliad or the Odyssey. That some of these books can carry morals, especially with them almost being nearly 100 years old, that these are larger than life, modern day gods and heroes, and that there's morals that at any age that you can take from. I mean, even reading different graphic novels throughout my own personal life, like almost approaching 40 now, I read it and take something away differently when I read The Dark Knight Returns, or I read Superman Red Sun, or Kingdom Come, or Earth X, or any of like the Phoenix Saga or Days of Futures Past from X-Men, that there's perspectives and lessons that can be learned about building moral character. And if he picked up the American way, he took it to the next step. He took that challenge and decided to be an agent of change in his own community based on the morals that he learned in a comic book, and believed in truth, justice, and the American way and the American ideal. And now he's a member of the House of Representatives. So I think that's one of the few times geek culture can stand tall. And that I think that this is a good way that it's okay to let your geek flag fly.
Absolutely.
So those are the topics I had. So this is, get ready, kids, because we're going to close with a bang.
We just ended with such a positive story.
Hey, I gotta build you up, then I gotta build you down. No ending on a high note here, kids. Just when you expect something. So I will say at this point, kids, ladies and gentlemen, this is unfiltered. So this is MA Prolly territory. So if you need to hit the skip button, like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching. So Ruben, what is the topic that you have to present in front of me?
All right, Steve. So your topic is, as we discussed a few weeks ago during our Avatar episode, James Cameron was such an asshole to Avatar: The Last Airbender that he forced them to change everything when they were making their movie. Like he made it called The Last Airbender. And then subsequently, his movies, the first one, had an air tribe. The second movie had a water tribe. He just announced that the next movie will feature Na'vi with fire and probably involve a volcano.
So I'll take it from there then.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of find it funny that James Cameron probably got high on his own supply and was watching Avatar and went so hard in the paint to do legal indictments, not just against Avatar: The Last Airbender at the time that the first movie came out, but also sue a budding new AAA IP known as Borderlands, who in the very first game, if you play this game, you're predominantly on the planet of Pandora. Now, Pandora has been public domain since the dawn of time because of Grecian culture, going back to Pandora's box. So sorry, Jimmy Cam, you don't get to own something that's been around that people have used. Don't try to front on everybody just because you're insecure about the property that you made and you've begged and borrowed, and you essentially made Pocahontas, Ferngully with guns. Let's be honest with what really it's about. And you took some elements from Aliens, and now you're doubling down on now borrowing from probably one of the best Nickelodeon animated series that came out in the last 20 years that kids and adults like mutually. Now you'll probably be forgotten when Netflix finally does it right and has a live action adaptation of Avatar that is interesting and doesn't doesn't bend the knee to you, where they change the name of it and call it The Last Airbender, and they mispronounce Aang's name poorly like shit, and they call him Ong the Abada just to make you happy about your blue cat people. For a movie that, I'm sorry, I essentially was rooting for the Space Marines the entire time. They have the better sophisticated technology. They have the better weapons. The other guys have vibranium bows and arrows and are all like as tall as Wilt Chamberlain, right? You can see them coming from a mile away. If they gave you a hard time on the ground and this infantry is handing you your ass over hand over foot, bombard them from orbit. Say, I am God and here is hellfire, and I will continue to rain it down upon you with your silly giant bats until you bend the knee and give me my mulligan rock, known as unobtainium. And now in the new way of water, now there's magical sharks that make you live forever. Like, we keep on finding different lame-ass mulligans in all these movies. What are the lava people going to have? Stuff that makes sure that you never have skin cancer?
Who knows?
And that's the lava people. So now we've had fire. So then what are the earth people going to have? A glorified Glen Ivy spa that now that the humans are going to want? And so they have like perfect skin and shit. This is asinine, man. I get that it's James Cameron, but he is smelling his own farts to a certain degree. And now he's like trying to throw shade at other movies that didn't do well, that he gave his blessing while he was working on Avatar because he was so transfixed on it. He didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like Terminator Dark Fate, which was T-1000 wet farts. So the greatest movie that James Cameron made next to Avatar and fucking Titanic was Terminator 2, right? Right? So you take that movie, you take fans. There are other people that have never watched any other Terminator films and have watched Terminator 2. And what do you do in Dark Fate in the first fucking 5 minutes? You kill John Connor and pretty much retcon fucking everything. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I was making my Blue Cat movie. Come on, man. No, Jimmy Cam. Big N to the O. Steve won't even go to the animal kingdom and see, in which that fucking thing makes no sense either. You have mech people riding around in the mech suits, hanging around, and this is the Na'vi. They don't get along. It's a civil war. There you go. There's my rant.
Well, it's way better than expected.
So sorry, kids. I am a James Cameron fan. Aliens is one of the best movies ever known to man. I'll watch it at any version. I have like 8 different versions of it. I have the director's cut. I have the European, every imaginable copy of Aliens that you can have. I am Space Marines through and through. I'm sorry, Colonial Space Marines. I don't want to piss off Warhammer fans and go, that's not it, Steve. Those are more Space Marines. Calm down. So there you go, kids. We might try to interject this segment in the middle, try to leave you on a happy note. But you know what? We're about having fun and keeping it lighthearted on this channel. Essentially, just sometimes you got to unleash the rage out a little bit. But we're not going to do it ad nauseum. We're not those guys on Friday nights collecting super chats, talking negatively about everything in the pop culture scene and not providing any actual positive agents of change, trying to move the narrative, trying to show you things that maybe you are not aware of that you can participate in. Those guys want to sit there on the fence and just collect super chats. So let those Friday night frolicking fucks do what they do. We do things here differently at West Coast Geeks. We love the West Coast. We love professional wrestling. We love all sorts of geekdom. But at the end of the day, we want to let you have your geek flag fly. This is a little passion of project. Ruben and I like to check in, share our personal thoughts and opinions. But more importantly, we want to always keep you in the conversation. Put your thoughts, likes, comments, subscribes, hit us on our socials. We're trying to make a better show, not just for us, but as a challenge as conversationalists, but for you guys to watch.
Absolutely. So hit your comments, and we'll get back to you. We're very interactive, so we want you guys to be part of the show.
And as always, no matter what you do, where you go, and who you are, keep your geek flag flying and always stay geeky, friends. We'll catch you on the next video.